This is your fix.
I'm your host, Stassi Schroeder. Welcome to Tell Me Lies, the official podcast. What's the most unhinged thing of season 3?
Steven, because he's so evil.
I do think he is misunderstood.
You see everyone face consequences.
It's intoxicating. The writers just know how to trick you. There's always a twist in this show. Tell Me Lies, the official podcast, January 6th, and stream the new season of Tell Me Lies, January 13th on Hulu and Hulu on Disney+.
In the last few years, I really took an interest because both my kids are in Durham public schools. And I started getting really interested in, the local media that we had, the TV stations and things like that were really not covering it as much as I wanted to. And I'm like, I feel like that's a gap. That's a thing we're missing. And I'm like, it's a lot for one person just to cover an area like Southpoint and South Durham. But I said, I am just the guy to try to do this insane thing.
This is Small Press Big Ideas, a podcast about the business of local news in the United States. I'm your host, Paul Gewertz. Small Press Big Ideas is about the opportunities and challenges that local news publishers are facing for their businesses. I'll sit down and talk with journalists, entrepreneurs, nonprofit leaders, and more in the local news industry to find out what's working, what isn't, and how the local news ecosystem can innovate and flourish in the 21st century. Okay, today on the podcast, I'm joined by Wes Platt. He is the editor and publisher of Southpoint Access in Durham, in Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill area, it says on here. Wes, nice to meet you. Thanks for coming on the show, man.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Like I was saying before we were officially rolling, I love getting these stories out here, especially of like kind of indie startups and stuff in the local media space. So if you could just set a baseline, just tell us about your background and your career and kind of what's led up to where you're at now.
How long do we have? I actually got my start in print journalism. I was a reporter at the St. Petersburg Times back in the early 90s, mid 90s. And I was there till like 2003, 2004. But in that time, hilariously enough, I worked all the different beats you could work at a newspaper. And I was in a bureau in Brooksville and in Pasco County for a while. And they actually asked me at around 1994, start a really hyperlocal regional in the central part of Pasco County, right north of Tampa, in an area called Land O'Lakes. And I moved into a house there, started up a weekly. I went out and I was at the Chamber of Commerce and the Flapjack Festival and all this stuff. And then after I left the Times, I went into video game design for a while, made a couple of games, came back to journalism at the Herald Sun in Durham once I was up here in North Carolina. And then I went into technical writing for a while, got out of that to be an editor for a school transportation magazine called School Bus Fleet. And then, in the last few years, I really took an interest because both my kids are in Durham public schools. There were some issues going on with our public schools and some of their salary issues they were having, being able to pay the bills. And I started getting really interested in, the local media that we had, the TV stations and things like that were really not covering it as much as I wanted to. And I'm like, I feel like that's a gap. That's a thing we're missing. I had worked at the Herald Sun here in Durham for a while, and I missed that kind of coverage. I think the News and Observer at that point had one or two people trying to cover the entire county for everything. And I'm like, it's a lot for one person just to cover an area like Southpoint and South Durham. But I said, I am just the guy to try to do this insane thing.
That's awesome. And that gap you talked about, I've noticed this happened with me. I don't have a local publication, but I like work with local publishers. It's the same thing that hit me. I moved from Denver, a major metro, to a much smaller town, and like it hit me directly. I did not have access to the information, what was going on or anything like that. So kind of similar, kind of origin there. So can you talk a little bit about Southpoint Access, the publication, what you cover?
Yeah,
I'm not
sure
how big Southpoint is, what that means really even. Yeah, just talk about that a bit.
The South Durham area that I cover, it's a little amorphous because it would also include areas in a little bit into Wake County, like Morrisville and Apex and a little bit of Chapel Hill. I think my readership area in a perfect world, looking at the zip codes, is about 125,000 people. It is not that many people reading Southpoint Access yet. Really, it's a matter of awareness. But what I write about, I essentially think about what are the things that I care about I've got a family here in South Durham. I want to know what the new developments are. I want to know what's going on with new businesses coming to the mall, new stores, new restaurants that are coming here, what's going on in local politics. And I think especially the real focus that I'm hitting in on is that the public schools and what's happening here, because I have kids in schools. A lot of the people that I want to read this publication have kids in schools or are going to have kids in schools. They're, young, but maybe building their families. It is a currently digital only, really. I mean, I make little zines on occasion to hand out to people with QR codes they can scan to get to it. But really, it's digital focused as a newsletter primarily.
And I was just looking at the website. It has almost like... it sounds like you're a somewhat technical guy. If you were building video games and all that, did you build it yourself? It almost has like a Substacky look, but I don't think it is.
I didn't. It's just a theme on Ghost. Ghost is it's a Ghost newsletter platform. I got turned on to Ghost by my Lion publishers. I had a audit, and my sustainability auditor recommended that I really, because I started on a Substack for Southpoint Access, went to a WordPress blog for a while, and that was just a lot of, plugins and things slowing down the site. Yeah. And my auditor's like, first of all, it's hard for people to figure out how to subscribe. You need to make it easy for them. And Ghost had this really simple interface, and the prompt to become a subscriber was like always highlighted until you subscribed, and then you could forget about it. And I moved over to Ghost in January, about a year ago, and I really haven't looked back. For a couple of months, I was kind of bouncing between the WordPress site and Ghost because I was sort of lacking confidence in the robustness of the search feature on Ghost, but it's gotten better with the most recent Ghost releases. So I'm pretty happy with that. I've got a redirect going from the old website to the Ghost platform.
It looks really good. I've heard about Ghost. I haven't actually used it. I think it's been recommended to me for some stuff when I was looking at things, but it looks really nice. And I'm a fan of anything for like somebody starting an indie publication like this, anything that's like more modern and just easier to navigate. Like WordPress is great, but it's like, you have to learn like a whole skill set to learn WordPress and all the plugins and everything, Yeah,
I mean, if I hadn't already, because, in my game development phases and in technical writing and previous work at the Herald Sun, I was doing content management systems and things like that. I don't think it would have been that easy for me to sort of grok all the stuff that you have to know to do a WordPress blog. That being said, I really like the fact that when I'm on Ghost, on one hand, I can't really do a whole lot of, customization that I might want to do, like with widgets on the side. If I learned a little bit more about how to mess with that, I probably could get in the innards and do that. I have had some help with some web designers who have specialties in working on Ghost. The one time I did try something, it broke the site. So I decided I would leave that to some professionals and stick to what I'm really better at, which is actually getting the news together.
Yeah. I mean, I've talked to plenty of people on that show. That's enough of a job to worry about without worrying about fixing plugins and stuff like that.
Right.
So let's dive into that a little bit. There's a big theme on the show of business models, sustainability, et cetera. But what is the business model? I don't know if it's like a full-time gig. I think you told me before you're working with some freelancers. What's hitting the cash register? How are you looking at that?
It is a full-time gig, but it doesn't pay as a full-time gig yet. Right now, I've got enough revenue coming in to like pay for the platform and some of the tools I'm using, my memberships and like Lion Publishers and the Tiny News Collective. So, I mean, it is growing. I've been part of an accelerator project with the Google News Initiative and Blue Engine for like the last 6 months or so. It's going through April. And that has really been a huge thing for me. I think maybe you saw the post I did on LinkedIn about how I've been in this program. And in the last 6 months, I've really learned how to kind of present the site better, to really hone the visuals that I'm putting together. Instead of putting out multiple emails a day, I was really trying to focus on, one, unless there was something really important breaking. Really just trying to change my process up so I don't burn out, because I am one guy doing this. But that has been a big help. And the project that I'm working on for this particular period going through April is the revenue piece. So I'm really trying to build awareness and the way I'm trying to get revenue in is primarily sponsorships. I have 5 major sponsors right now that are annual contributors to Southpoint Access. And then I have a bunch of paid subscribers, and that's been growing in the last couple of months. So it seems like the word is getting out that Southpoint Access exists and there's value to it. I think part of what's helping is like there's a school board election coming up in March. And I have been interviewing in my office hours live streams as many of the candidates as possible. I think I'm up to 9 out of 12. So I got to collect all my Pokemon politicians and get the rest of them in there. But that's been a big draw. And I've been really happy with the response that they see value in coming and talking with me because I think that helps, raise the stakes for everybody.
Yeah, I think sponsorships is probably a good move, or advertisers or whatever. You can look at reader revenue or like a paywall, but a lot of your stuff is about like the school boards and stuff. You don't necessarily want to cut off access to people that need that.
I mean, and I have some people get a little aggravated because I've vacillated between. I originally had on the Substack, I had a paywall initially, and then I dropped it because I said it kind of morally offended me as a news guy that. I mean, I understand that I want to make a living doing this, but the truth is that, this information, if anybody wants to get it, the reason I'm able to do this job is that I'm able to get it. It's public information. It's out there. I get a little more access because I can focus and do this full time and I can get more stuff maybe quicker. But I do still put a wall up on Ghost on some things, like your the obits today. I do ask the basic subscription is free. I just ask people to sign up to become a reader so that at least that's helping my statistics a bit to get my readership up. But I don't really ask people to pay for anything if they don't want to. But I mean, there's benefits to paying. At least, I'm going to give people shout outs. I'm going to let people know that they're supporting local news. And I'm also taking a percentage of the money they give me and I'm passing it on to a public school. Like right now, until the end of March, I'm giving part of my revenue to the Music Boosters Club at Rogers Her Middle School. Last December and November, I was doing that for the elementary school at Hope Valley. I just, feel like that helps as well. It's less money for me, but I feel like I want people to support me. If I'm getting supported by this community, I should do something to support them too. Yeah.
No, that's great. I love it. And yeah, that's it. I could even see a future, nice thing about community things. I could see a future of like monetizing even like events or something, hosting an event at the local brewery or something like that. There's other stuff that could be folded in later, but that's.
Yeah, and there are a lot of things that I'm thinking about. There are other small news outfits that are doing things like walking tours. Which
I just saw something about that today.
Was that
on,
Kara's
thing? I'm not sure where I saw it, but yeah, sorry.
I think it was Kara over at Future Tides in Seattle. She has made a pretty big splash over there by having these. They're free, but she does these walking tours along the waterfront, and kind of gives a history. She talks about what's going on in the area. It's a great way to meet readers.
Yeah.
And I've been thinking about doing something like that as well, maybe focused around the American Tobacco Trail here in Durham. But that's just getting the weather to cooperate and having the time to do that. But that is that. And I'm interested in events, but there's also that, upfront expense. And making sure it's a good event and not just, me hanging out at the 7-Eleven or something.
Yeah. I've also, the risk with events is, I've told this story on the podcast before. I'm in Western Colorado, it's a town of like 20,000. And last year they had this, at the end of summer, they had this awesome kind of community event. There was like a band, a bunch of booths. It was so fun. We took the kids, had some beers, danced around. It was really fun. They did it again this year, and we were so excited. And we live in like high desert. Like we do not get that much rain here. Just dumped rain for 2 days on the day of it. We showed up, and it was just, I felt so bad for the people. It was like a quarter of the turnout of the year before. So, stuff like that. Right. Acts of God can happen. Sorry, I don't mean to dissuade you from looking into it.
No, it's okay.
That's like the risk there, Yeah.
And being the solopreneur setup, I mean, I actually look for events where I can kind of piggyback a little bit with somebody else, where there's a local networking. Next Level Local is having a networking event on, I think, February 23rd. And I'm actually going to be there to talk about Southpoint Access. I got invited to do that. So there are other events that, I can go to locally that don't necessarily have to have my banner flying over it. I'm usually the media sponsor for my Greek Orthodox church. We have a Greek festival in May, so I'll be there pitching Southpoint Access there. So, there are like ways that I'm trying to fold in some marketing and publicity there. But, having an actual organized event and everything is hard just because I have so much to do just day to day, covering what's going on and then marketing the things, doing the social media promotions for the work I'm doing. It's a challenge, but yeah.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
That's great. So, you're focused on this full time, talked about business model, et cetera, growing it. It sounds like you have some kind of audience. What has the reception been like from the community? What have you heard from people?
It's been good. It could be better. Obviously I want, more than, my goal was to try to get to like 1,000 subscribers. I'm about halfway there. So I would really like to see that audience continue to grow. I think once I settled on a platform with Ghost, it became much easier for me to kind of hone my message and drive people to the site and start building that audience. Now it's convincing people who are subscribed for free to convert that into payment. Right. And that's been happening a little bit at a time. But I'm also thinking about projects that I can do that might get funding. Because I'm part of the Tiny News Collective, I can use them as a fiscal sponsor to help act almost like a nonprofit. And because they are a nonprofit, I can use that status as an umbrella for me to collect funds that will then be tax deductible. Because right now when I go ask somebody to be a sponsor or to donate money, they're just throwing money at me and that's it. They don't get any real tax benefit or anything from that.
Right.
So, I love that my sponsors that I do have now who support local news and have kind hearts and want to see me succeed are doing that. But it would be great if, for example, I start building this big public school project I have in mind, and then I go through the Tiny News Collective and get a lot of funding from some big donors to make that work. I think then that also builds the status of the site and takes it toward a future where it's more than just me scrambling to spin all these plates constantly. I really want this to be more than me at some point.
Yeah. And shout out Tiny News Collective. I had Amy Kovac-Ashley on the podcast a long time ago. Anybody wants to hear more about that organization, go back and listen to that one. It's a really cool organization. So it is 2026. So I'm legally obliged to ask you about AI.
Yeah.
Because that's what everybody asks about on including, I'm guilty. What are your thoughts on AI? Are you using any tools or anything like that? And how are you using them?
Yeah, I use ChatGPT not to write because I have spent way too long in my life as a writer to totally give that up. But I do use it to, I'll take, for example, the school board agendas, and they've got packets of, PDFs full of information, and I will feed those into ChatGPT. I've got a paid subscription account, and I will let it look at the documentation, kind of pick out highlights. Of course, you have to go back and confirm that it's not making stuff up, but the model that it's using now seems pretty reliable on that front. I don't really like it to get quotes or anything because
you got to watch out for that. Yeah.
But looking at data, I'll give it, for example, last night I put together the obits. I'm doing that by myself. I go through and go through the funeral home sites, pick out who died recently, and I get ChatGPT to organize that list that I then put into a post on my newsletter. So I use it as an editorial assistant. I don't use it as a reporter. And I also have been, I started working with a couple of students at Duke University. Just met with them last week to start brainstorming a project. And I don't know what we're going to end up doing. It's really in the early stages, but it will be something using AI to try to make my life as a editor and publisher easier. I'm not sure exactly what we're going to do. They're going to propose something to me, but I'm interested to see where that goes. But other than that, it is really a lot of clerical work on my side. I'm getting event information. I get press releases in, and I go through these. The other AI tool I should probably mention is SeeGov, SEEGOV, and I think there might be a municipality in Colorado that's been using SeeGov, but it is run by a guy named Alex Rosen here in South Durham, one of my readers actually, and the AI looks at city council meetings and school board meetings, captures the video, and then it goes through and builds a transcript, and it captures all these moments, and you can make a video reel of the meeting. So instead of having to sit through 4 hours of a meeting, a journalist can sit there and get exactly what they need for a 30-minute reel or 10, 15 minutes. Or now he's got it set up so you can get little bite-sized chunks, which are great for sharing on social media or putting with a story. And that is super helpful. Again, you sometimes have to watch it because it'll misspell people's names or it'll give the incorrect spelling for a project because it's doing stuff phonically. It's hearing things and then trying to spell it. But aside from those caveats, it's basic editorial work. You have to be a copy editor as well as the journalist. It's pretty handy. That has been another way that I've been able to build awareness of Southpoint Access, because when the posts go out there, it says that I'm the guy who's publishing these on Reddit, and the people on Reddit end up coming and checking out Southpoint Access.
That's really cool, that SeeGov. Because I've actually seen a bunch of those, like transcribing local council meetings and stuff. A lot of them are just transcribing it, though. And like you said, you can't really trust if it's doing things correctly.
Right.
Pairing it with the video is really cool because you can actually verify. You can look and be like, wait, is that exactly what he said? And you can pull it up. That's
and you got to watch
helpful
to see if it's attributing it to the right person.
Right. But just even like helping you verify that it's not
exactly
totally
and being
nuts.
able to just having the transcript there and then being able to compare and get quotes from that. If you can't, because I can't. I've got 2 kids. One's 8, one's 12. I am not really able to go sit in a 6-hour school board meeting. My daughter, speaking of which, says hello.
Hello.
All right. That's Athena. She, so I can't go to these meetings all the time. And especially when there's like 3 meetings in one night.
Yeah.
In my younger days, I might have gone to one of those. But yeah, it makes it a lot easier for me to keep track of what's going on and then inform the neighbors that this is what's happening instead of having to try to get to it a month later.
Super cool. I like that. Great stuff. And just echoing all the stuff you said on AI, that's pretty in line with what a lot of people say. Almost nobody, I have heard some people, but almost nobody's using it to actually write things, do reporting.
Yeah.
But the tools are powerful if you can figure out the good ones to use.
And I will say that back when I started using it, I kind of let it try to write things. And I just spent more of my time going, oh, no, I don't like that. That's not my voice. That's not, even if it was if Southpoint Access was the byline, it wasn't me. I'm just like, I still don't want to sound like that. I want it to be like this. So I'm like, at a certain point, just do your own work. I mean, it takes less time to just, rewrite the press release yourself than it does to let that do it and then try to tweak it.
Yeah.
And that just becomes a rabbit hole you're chasing down. I feel it's just better as an editorial assistant. It's good for asking, hey, here's a thing I'm thinking about doing. I use it all the time for like marketing ideas. I'll say,
it's great for it. Yeah.
Brainstorming, because I used to have that in a newsroom. I could sit around and just bounce things off of people. And sometimes it just helps. It's sometimes just you thinking back at yourself after a while, but it could be useful. Yeah.
And even writing with it, even if it's not a quality issue, you spend enough time with it, and then you hop on LinkedIn. it has an accent.
Yes.
I can tell if it repeats something 3 times with a period in between. There's all these little markers, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with it, but I'm like, I can tell that they that's not their full voice or whatever. So there's also that. Cool. Okay, so I've been asking everybody this, and I'll specify it for you. Flash forward 5 years. Say everything comes together exactly the way you envision it for Southpoint? Where do you see this thing in 5 years? What's like ideal situation?
Yeah, ideally, this thing is paying for itself. Number one, it's paying me. It's paying at least 2 or 3 other people. I want a couple of reporters. I want somebody who's dedicated to covering development and business. I want somebody who's dedicated to covering the schools, and ideally somebody who's covering the government, city government, county government, and what's going on there. I don't have a heavy focus on crime news. I do have a crime report that comes out on Wednesdays, but it's really, here's where the burglaries are happening. Here's where Durham gets enough crime coverage as it is from the TV stations that I don't really feel like I need to go out and cover, because if I cover crime, I'm not covering anything else. I was a police reporter at the St. Pete Times. I was a police reporter at the Herald Sun, and I just know that's a beat by itself that I don't want this to turn Southpoint Access into a police blotter. I want to be a community neighborhood news thing, unless there's some, massive crime wave going on in this area that would really be newsworthy. I don't want to get into the if it bleeds, it leads mentality. So I would want, at least 2 or 3 other people working with me who are, photojournalists, video journalists, people who can, help me put this content together and maybe even, think about branching this out to other places. I could see a model like this working in Morrisville or Apex or, these other subdivisions or suburbs. Chapel Hill and Carrboro already have some sites like this. The Triangle Blonde blog over in Chapel Hill is both newsworthy and funny a lot of the time. The Carrborian, Jennifer Yorkovich over in Carrboro, she's got print and a ghost newsletter.
Really?
She's a little bit more ambitious and daring than I am. But it helps. I think it's great. Like I would go over there to see an improv show in one of the galleries in Carrboro, and I'm sitting there in my chair, and the table next to me, there's the Carrborian right there in front of me. It is nice to see that in your hand, tangible product, which I miss a little bit, but I don't miss the overhead of needing to pay for it to get printed and then hoping people pick it up.
Cool. Well, that's everything I had kind of written down here. Wes, where can people find you? What do you want me to link to? What do you want to promote? And I'll link to whatever in the show notes.
Southpoint Access is available on the Ghost platform at SoDoWeLikeLocal.news. SoDo, South Durham. And that's a good place to find me. I'm on Instagram at Wes Platt Southpoint Access and Threads as well. There, I think we've got a Facebook page for Wes Platt or for Southpoint Access News. So those are the primary places you can find me.
Awesome. Wes, thank you so much. Thanks for sharing the time. This is a really cool story. And I really appreciate you taking the time to tell me about it. So
anytime.
You have a good day, man. Yeah.
You too. And thanks for having me on. I really enjoyed it. And great show. I've been enjoying the episodes I've been listening to.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Thanks.
All right. Take care.
Yeah, you too. Thank you for listening to Small Press Big Ideas. You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you'd like to help the show, the best thing you can do is to tell a friend or colleague and just take a few minutes to leave a rating and a review on whatever platform you're listening to right now. It only takes a minute out of your day, but it really does help the podcast grow and reach more ears. Check back for new episodes every Monday.